My phone addiction is getting absolutely out of hand. I feel like I've tried everything, using the screen time recording to shame myself, taking up reading and yoga classes, putting my phone in a drawer, etc. Nothing is working. I'm at a wit's end. I don't even like using my phone anymore, but it's a complete addiction. I feel like my phone use is affecting my life and relationships because I just have the urge to scroll through whenever I'm with people. My screen time today was over 7 hours, but it's been over 8 before, and I'm sure I got to 9 hours once, which I'm absolutely ashamed of. That is a full-time job in a day. Imagine how much I'd get done with those 8 hours. And he continues to sort of talk on a bit about this and his struggles. So reading this, I can really relate to this more so with video games, right? Where I've spent moments where I spent from 6 in the morning to about like 2 or 3 in the afternoon just playing video games and wasting the day away, which obviously is a pretty stupid thing to do. But it's pretty similar in the sense of, well, to that point, it is a bit of an addiction. And it's an addiction when you don't really plan for it. If I had literally sat down, the night before saying, right, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do this thing, and I did it, I wouldn't necessarily say that's an addiction because you sort of plan for it. However, in this instance, and obviously in my instance, when you don't really plan for it, but it just sort of takes over, that's when I think it becomes a bit of an addiction because it's something that is out of control. So, what would I say for this? First of all, obviously, this guy has been trying everything or a lot of things here, and this addiction is pretty bad. Now, I know from my experience with dealing, for example, with when I used to have a really intense addiction to video games, there wasn't anything else that I would want to do. I didn't have interest in other things. And whenever I was bored or had free time, the only thing in my mind that I could see that I could do was play video games. There was no other choice. And that was really interesting. And looking back, I find that interesting because I realized, well, actually, there was tons of things I could have done, right? I could have, gone to the gym. I could have, gone and called up that person. I could have gone and worked on that meaningful project. Like, I could have done a lot of things, but those opportunities weren't there, right? I didn't notice the other things I could have done. Now, the issue with addictions like this, especially with things like social media, your phone or even video games, is because they're overstimulating in comparison to, for example, video games or in comparison to scrolling on your phone, everything else seems boring. Everything else seems dull. And I started to see my life almost as like just grayscale when I walked outside. Not literally, but everything just sort of felt a bit boring. And I was like, I just want to go back home and I just want to play video games, right? And that obviously is very damaging. And this person even said, that it basically started to sort of damage and affect his relationships. And, I know this for myself. Sometimes when I'd be out with friends and family, I'd always be on my phone, or I'd be coped up in my room playing video games when actually I could have been hanging out and spending time with family. So it's those sort of things where when you realize the damage it's having, it's like, right, I need to change. So what did I do about this? Right? Because I don't actually have that that intense of an issue with things like video games or even social media anymore. So one of the things I really did, and I know this guy's obviously talked about in terms of, trying to take up different habits, putting his phone away. All those small things are good, right? Because be able to control your environment, that's useful. One of the first things is finding out what you actually want to do. What are your actual interests? What are things that you perhaps thought about somewhere in the back of your mind, perhaps thought about that you think that could be interesting to do? Just like literally, I mean, if you've heard of things like ikigai before, right? Where you're trying to sort of figure out, what you're good at, what the world needs, that sort of stuff, that can be pretty useful to do. And I've done that a few times as well, and that sort of helped. Because if you don't actually want to do something, if you don't actually have interest that you want to work towards, then all these other habits like reading, like, yoga or whatever, that's never going to last because you have no interest for it. There's no real drive or actual direction towards it. So that's a really big thing. Now, for example, for me, when I was sort of making the ikigai, I was looking at it like, right, well, what do I enjoy doing? Well, I enjoy video games, right? So on and so forth. I also enjoy AI, right? I enjoy being able to sort of use that and whatever. And then it's like, okay, well, what does the world need, and so on and so forth. I'm looking at that, and I was like, okay, going through that, it's like, well, people play video games, of course I do as well. And then it was the thoughts of, okay, well, what if I could, make my own video games? I was like, okay, that's an interesting thought. And then I was like, okay, well, I'd have to learn code and all that. And I did sort of start learning code at some, like, probably a year ago, but I didn't really sort of get into that. But then there was the thought of, well, hang on a minute. If I enjoy playing video games and I'm curious about making some, and I'm pretty good at AI, and I've used, for example, ChatGPT a lot, is there a way where I can use ChatGPT to write all the code for me? And I played around with it. I sort of talked to it, like talk GPT, and it was saying, well, yeah, you could. I was like, okay, right. And then I even thought, well, hang on a minute. Well, AI can make me images. Can I not just get AI to make me images for my game as well? And it was like, well, yeah. And so what I did is I thought, okay, well, let's just give this a try. Let's just throw something. And that's what I did. And actually, within, I don't know, the first 20 to 30 hours of, me going into game development, I had made my first very awfully looking but functioning combat scene. And that was mind blowing to me because I thought, hang on a minute, if I can make this, then I can go and do this. And so all of a sudden, I was able to take interests of mine, I was able to put them into things that were more meaningful, things that I could build upon, right? And at the time of recording this video, it's the 28th of September, and I plan to release my first ever demo in about the next sort of 6, 7 days, or at least to apply to release it. So that's obviously going to be a really big milestone. But the point being is that I started with an interest of mine, right? Because my issue with a lot of the sort of improvement or like self-improvement stuff is when people were saying, oh yeah, you should read books, or just simply always suggesting the minimal thing that you should do as opposed to the things you want to do. Because I think for me, at the end of the day, if you have an interest in something that you're like, that could be quite cool to do, and you can turn that, or you can give that some energy somewhat consistently, and you can turn that into some sort of creative project that you're building on, all the other small little habits, like those things aren't going to, like, effectively just being interested in that thing and moving towards that is going to have so much more of a bigger impact, because all of a sudden, for example, for this guy, he can either choose to scroll on his phone or he can choose to do that other meaningful thing. Now, is that meaningful thing always going to win? No, but it's there and it's on his radar. Whereas for me, I know I know when I had that really bad issue with video games was only on my radar. There was never any game development on there. And at the moment in time, I still play video games from time to time, but it's nowhere near as bad. And the game development is the actual stuff I really enjoy doing. So let me know your thoughts on this video. I think my thoughts or what I've said has been pretty clear, but I'm interested to know if you've got, sort of phone addiction or video game addictions at the moment, or perhaps, how you've sort of been working against them as well. And if you're building anything meaningful for you at the moment, just let me know your thoughts. I'll chat soon.